Hey everybody, Scott Mann here, noisechop.com. I'm doing another tutorial today on integrating Stable Diffusion into TouchDesigner. I did one tutorial on Stream Diffusion, which was a real-time video integration with TouchDesigner, which is very fun. This is a still image integration using the ComfyUI interface with Stable Diffusion. So the limitation is it's not real-time video, but the upside is you can make much more intricate and advanced imagery using a ComfyUI network. Easy to incorporate LoRa's and control nets, and you can do a lot more with it. I'm assuming you have some basic acumen with ComfyUI. If you've never used it, this is probably not a good place for you to start. I would go watch Dylan's tutorial on sort of getting ComfyUI installed and up and running, and just have like a basic level of familiarity with ComfyUI. Once you have done that, then come back to this and I can show you how to make a basic ComfyUI network and integrate it into TouchDesigner. And then I'm going to go through building a little simple installation of a photo booth inside of TouchDesigner, where it'll take 4 pictures of you and lay them out the way that you can see them right up here, and save out a file that way. But for many of you, probably the most interesting part will just simply be, how do I get a ComfyUI network running up in TouchDesigner? So without further ado, the first thing that you would need to do is go to .simulate's Patreon. And to do that, you would just go to .simulate Patreon. You would sign up for a starter pack. You could spend $5 to get this this Tox. You would join for a month, and then I guess you could cancel your subscription. But this is a really great community for people who are doing TouchDesigner and AI integrations and a lot of other stuff with ChatGPT that he's built. So it's worth at least having a look around here. Once you're a member, you would go to his server, which is this sort of AI looking mountain logo, and find the download Tox. This is the Stream Diffusion one. Here's the Comfy TD one. We're at version 2.0 at the time that I'm making this tutorial. Pop that download. Once you have that, I would recommend that you put it in with your other Tox files. Here it is, and drag it into a TouchDesigner network. There it is. Now, again, I've assumed that you have a portable ComfyUI installed. I've never messed around with Comfy Desktop. This is all working with Comfy Portable, so I don't know if this will work with any other version. I recommend the portable version just because it means you can throw that install onto a hard drive and use it on your laptop or whatever. And it's all self-contained in one folder. So once you have the Tox file here in your TouchDesigner network, you're going to want to tell the Tox file where your Comfy TD folder is. So you'd go to the Setup tab, and right here it says ComfyUI base folder. Throw it in there. I'll do it from inside here. So ComfyUI Windows Portable, ComfyUI, you actually open the ComfyUI folder, so you see it as the last folder on the chain, and select it. And now you have told the Comfy TD Tox where your ComfyUI folder is so that you can kick it open from inside. And then you can just launch ComfyUI. Boom. Apparently nothing will happen, but don't pulse it twice. You'll see, if you tab out, that Stable Diffusion is being kicked open in the background. So once you see this, to see the GUI, go to this URL. This used to kick open ComfyUI for me automatically in a browser window, and it no longer does that, and I don't know why. But maybe that's a useful thing, because if that happens to you, you'll now know how to deal with it. So Stable Diffusion's running here in the background, and ComfyUI, of course, runs in a browser. I'm using Chrome, but you can just copy this URL and paste it into your browser, and that'll launch your ComfyUI. And it'll load whatever you were working on last. So what I'm going to do here, just so if you're starting from scratch, you can go to Browse Templates. I'm using an image-to-image workflow, so this will just kick open a very basic image-to-image workflow, which is a good starting place because that's what we're going to be doing in TouchDesigner. The first thing you want to do before you even go near TouchDesigner is make sure that Comfy is happy. Right now, I'll just run this queue. Okay, I get an error. And this is because it's trying to load this model. This is a handy thing just to be aware of or to be reminded of, that if you get an error in Comfy, it'll read the point in your network at which it's having the problem, and then you can go back into your command prompt to see what the problem is. And it says, failed to validate prompt for output 9, checkpoint loader. That's my load checkpoint. Value not in list. So it says this is a model. This safe tensors file is a model, and it can't load it because my version of that is inside another folder in my models folder. You can separate your models into folders, as you can see I have done. LCM Epic Photogasm. I'm using this LCM model. LCM models are sort of lightweight models that run very fast, and I'm going to be generating a lot of images as we do this, so I'm just using an LCM model. They work really well for testing purposes and everything, so I recommend finding a good LCM. This is Epic Photogasm, which makes good photographic content. So there, hopefully I've solved my problem. So I got a green on the load checkpoint. That's a good sign. And it's going to take this image of a cartoon gal and convert it into a photograph of a Victorian woman with wings, sky clouds, meadow, grass. Important to remember that the first time that you run your Comfy network, this is whether you're running it out of TouchDesigner or not, it's going to take a couple of minutes to load the model, but once it has loaded the model, subsequent generations will run much more quickly. There we go. It took this image and it converted it into this image. I mean, it's sort of close, right? But one of the reasons the model has taken so many liberties is that the denoise is set to 0.87, which is a very high denoise. If we turn this down to like 0.5 something, it will do less work. Basically, it will honor the original image more. Anyway, so there we have a working image-to-image network, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to change this network at all. So now you need to save your workflow because you're going to load this workflow into TouchDesigner. You go to Workflow, Save As. I'm going to call this image. We'll call it TD image to image. TD image to image. Great. Confirm. When you save it, you have saved it. It doesn't give you a whole lot of information about where you saved it. And apparently there's a way to change this in the settings. I have not been able to find that setting. So if somebody finds it, post it in the comments. I think from my standpoint or where I'm at, you're stuck with where it's saving it. And it is saving it in ComfyUI, user, default, workflows. Okay, so you might make a shortcut to your workflows folder. I haven't even done that yet. Let's drop this over here. So there's my workflows. Once again, ComfyUI, user, default, workflows. Okay, so there's the workflow I just saved. And you can move these files around, obviously, and put them in other places, but this is probably going to be your first stop. So there's my little image-to-image workflow, and I need to drop this into the talks. Okay, so you go to the config tab, and you have a workflow config field right here. Grab your ComfyUI network that you just saved. It's a JSON file, and drop it in there. You can also, oh no, you can't. That's the only way to do this. Okay, so this is this ComfyUI network. We're going to load into this Tox, and then it will call on that network to talk directly to Stable Diffusion. This is not part of the workflow anymore. So if I change settings in here, it will not talk to your browser. It will not load back into your browser. The ComfyUI itself is done until you want to go back and change your network, which we'll actually do later. But so the first thing you do once you've loaded this file into this field is update config toggle, turn it on, and you'll see that all of your nodes in your ComfyUI network are off. So you need to pulse them all on for it to function the way that it was functioning out of ComfyUI. So just toggle all config, so they should all be on. And then over here, you'll see that there are nothing in your settings. This is where you access the actual parameters of your Comfy network. You've got to hit update API parameters. And then it will load all of the parameters that are in your ComfyUI network into this page where you'll see your settings. Okay, so you can see this. I've never used this, but it looks like you can tell it to randomize if you add. This is like adding channels in TouchDesigner, basically. I guess this is automatically randomizing seed. I might just delete this because I just want to control all of these parameters directly. We don't have very many. If you had a really complex ComfyUI network, you would have a lot of parameters in here, and you could turn them on and off in your configuration and change the parameters. But as you can see, we've got seed steps. This is all the parameters for the K sampler. So here's your K sampler, which is sort of the beating heart of your network. And then your sampler name, your CFG steps. It's loaded all of these values out of here, but you can't, you're changing them only inside the file that has been loaded into TouchDesigner, right? So if I try to do a generation right now, I'm going to get an error. And that is because there's one parameter in this ComfyUI network that does not have a source file. And here I have directed it. It does not actually bring this data from certain nodes. It doesn't bring them in to TouchDesigner for you. They have to be reassigned. So let's just, this is a good way to just make sure that you have things running. I'm going to grab a movie file in. I'll create a null because I'm a good person. And you can just drag that null into here. And now you're telling it where to get the image file. That's all you need to do. And now I can say, I'll say cartoon, funny, get out of the way, funny, banana. And now it should be working. And you can see it's running a lot faster now that you've already loaded the model. You don't even need to reload Stable Diffusion. So there, now you have an image-to-image AI generator running inside of TouchDesigner. And obviously this is the most basic network that you can set up. And you can have fun like cranking up the denoise and generating that. You see a little progress bar here, very helpful, but you'll see that it's generating things. I'm running a 3090 here. I don't think that's very funny. Can we get a funny one? Okay, there you go. So anyway, here's your most basic TouchDesigner network where you have Stable Diffusion running in the background. I'm going to open up a little network that I built. Called Photobooth. This is a little magic photo booth that you can run with your webcam or whatever. So basically, I just have a little content generator based off of my webcam, and I'm running that into ComfyTD, popping it out into a few cache files, and making a little Photobooth output. So I don't remember what I had in here. I'm going to start with Nicki Minaj in Candyland. Start with that. I'm going to load my the setup that I had in my config. So this is my little ComfyUI network that I made. Is that the right one? Yes, it is. TD image to image. And I'll just demo it here so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm looking at my progress bar here, and then I'm going to change my pose. There's my first image. Look at my progress report. I'm going to just do something strange here. There it is. Ooh, got yucky hands. Oh, not bad. Oh, that one's going to be just kind of normal. Whoa, all right, Nicki Minaj in Candyland. That's very fun. Okay, so basically I push a button and it will take my webcam output, which I've tweaked with a little color stuff, make a snapshot based on my prompt, load that into a cache, do it again, do it again, do it again, and then drop it in a layout and save this file, a movie file out that just saves out a quick PNG file into my TouchDesigner folder. So fun Photobooth output, there it is. So it saved a little file for me. So this is just kind of a demonstration of how you could make a little fun installation. How did I do this? Well, it's basically my webcam going in. I fit it, shaved off the sides, made it 1024 by 1024 because that is what most of these models are trained at, and it just works very efficiently. But apparently from the last demo, you can do different resolutions if you like. I flipped it so that it's actually a mirror. Transformed it in a little closer, increased the contrast, turned down the brightness. And then I did this little like monochrome treatment. I'm basically recolorizing it with a lookup. And then I just made an LFO that cycles through. This is a ramp. And if you set it to amplitude 360, you can just loop perfectly through a ramp file that changes the color treatment. Okay, so those are the two inputs to my lookup. I level it down a little bit, and then I recombine it with the original to give me this sort of like solarized looking image, just to give it, I don't know, something interesting to work on. That was just sort of my concept, was like a kind of pop art looking output. So that's just a very brief overview of what I did going in. I mean, you can send anything you want into this, obviously. And then I have a button press, a momentary, that pings the prefill of a cache. So as you can see, anytime I pulse this, it will capture a still of what I'm sending into this cache. So I basically turn it on and off real quick. It grabs that one and holds it there as a nice still image that I can then confidently feed into ComfyTD. So how did I do that? Well, when I push this button, it pings that. You already saw how I did that. And then in here, it just pings my generate pulse. So grabs that image, pings the generate pulse, and then what happens on output, this is very handy stuff that .simulate built into the talks. Just create a null here, and then you can grab, not only, there's a progress bar, which is useful. I just grabbed that out. You could make like an interesting little graphic of a progress bar. I didn't do that, but you could. You can make like a little timer clock or something so that you know when the next picture is going to be taken. The most important thing that I'm grabbing out of here is the on done. It'll give you a pulse on done. So I'm going to run the photo booth one more time. So you can see down here, there's my progress bar. And when it hits the on done, I just have a little script, a chop execute here, which has just some simple Python that basically runs the guts of this stuff, right? It just tells it what to do. So I have, it runs from the select into a count. So every time the pulse hits the count goes up, right? When it gets to 4, I've limited it to a maximum of 4, so it goes back down to 0. So it'll jump down to 4 and generate a new image for you. So that I just cheated. Instead of making a like a state analysis for this, I just had the 0 image be like a throwaway image that I don't use. And then, so on value change, whenever the count pops up, it looks at the cache with the number of the value that is coming in. So the value is either 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So it's going to look at op for number 1. It'll look at op cache 1, which is right up here. And that basically, once it's done, you have a generation, Stable Diffusion, sitting in your Comfy TD here, and it will pass that to this cache, or all these caches actually. But then when I know once I'm done, I want to grab that one, right? So that's my first image, okay? And then it tells it to, if the value is 0, then I know that I've run through all 4. So that's like my little cheat right there. When after it generates the 0 image and the value coming in is 0, then I've run through all 4 of my images. I tell my op movie file out to record set to 1. And then I just set it back to 0 after a delay of 10 frames. I just built this in as sort of a safety so that it didn't happen inside of one frame or something. It's just a good idea to give it a second to turn on and then turn off. Because the output of this movie file out is set to a PNG, it'll just save it as a single image file. So you change your image file type to PNG here. Just looking at this code again, if it's not 0, then it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4. So it just clicks the button again for me. That's all it does. And the count is sitting in here waiting for the next to be incremented again. So I'll just run it again. So that's my null state image. So there it ran. That's my first one. It's sitting here waiting. If value equals 0, it'll do this. Well, it doesn't equal 0. It equals 2. So it knows to just click the button again, which kicks Stable Diffusion alive. Comes up to 3. Is it 0? No. It just clicks the button again. And on every, no matter what, it tells it to click the proper cache value, right? So it cached all of these various images for me of Nicki Minaj and Candyland. And then it'll quickly pulse this record. We got it. And that file is saved out to your TouchDesigner file, and there it is, right? There's your little photo booth output. Oh, here's one last thing. Like, why is this useful, right? I mean, if you're into this stuff, hopefully that's obvious, but like I can go back into my Comfy network and make changes. I can add LoRa's, I can add all kinds of things. So let's say, we could walk through changing your network. So I'll add a LoRa here, load LoRa. As always, it tells you what information it needs. So you kind of just know that this has to set on the clip path and this has to be added to the model path. I'm going to add my favorite cheat. This is the Dolly 69 LoRa. And I'm going to leave it just absolutely cranked. Okay, so then I've got to save this workflow. Save. If you just turn this on and off, it might re-grab it. See, now you see how it just added that LoRa to my network. And you could add 10 LoRa's, and you could add control nets and do all kinds of things. And it brings all of the power of ComfyUI into TouchDesigner, which I think is awesome. Update API parameters. So now you can change the strength of the LoRa. You can even change which LoRa you're using from in here. And now I'm going to get like Salvador Dali inspired Nicki Minaj in Candyland, which will be rather interesting to see. I increased the step count a little bit. And now I'll run this network again. I just fast forwarded. That's why I have the content working now. So now let me actually try to turn down the denoise, because this is really running hot. If you want it to look anything like your input image, you got to run this at around half. So I think this one is still going to be running really hot. There we go. So artistic bohemian man in a bizarre abstract surreal painting with octopus. Okay. The Dali LoRa is giving it all of this Dali styling. So again, every time it is running an image, it reloads the network. So you can actually just change this on the fly, and it'll repop this data back in and send it over to Stable Diffusion fresh, right? So you can change things. You could even have stuff in LFO changing this stuff or whatever. Make a really wacky, unpredictable network that would give you really different outputs depending, you can see how these aren't as cooked as this one. Because I turned up my denoise a bit, and you could really turn up your steps, and you'll get crazy images or add noise or whatever. Okay, I'll shut up. I hope this was interesting and fun. Once again, if you have any comments or questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll try to get to it every day and respond. I hope this was interesting for you. Until next time. Have fun with TouchDesigner and ComfyUI. Over and out.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like our YouTube content, I highly recommend you check out the Interactive and Immersive HQ Pro. The HQ Pro is the only comprehensive educational resource and community for immersive design, TouchDesigner, and creative tech pros. In the HQ Pro trainings, we cover almost any topic you can think of, and we go way more in depth than we do in our YouTube tutorials. We have a private group where Matthew Reagan, myself, and our other industry veteran and pioneer teachers answer your questions every single day. If that sounds cool, click the link in the description to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more free TouchDesigner and immersive content.